The human body contains over 100 trillion receptor cells controlling our blood pressure and heart function. But most have no idea how this intricate system keeps us alive every second of every day.
That's fascinating to think about. How this complex network operates silently in the background until something goes wrong and medical intervention becomes necessary.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. How different receptors regulate hemodynamics and how we, as anesthesiologists, use vasopressors and inotropes to maintain stability in our patients.
Right? Because when a patient's blood pressure crashes in the OR, you don't have time to think about receptor pathways. You need to know instinctively which drug will work and why.
So let's break it down. The autonomic nervous system is like a command center, constantly adjusting heart rate, vascular tone, and cardiac output. And it does this through receptors, adrenergic, dopaminergic, vasopressin, and angiotensin II receptors.
Think of these receptors like control switches, each one fine-tuning the cardiovascular system in its own way. Let's start with the adrenergic system since that's what we use most in anesthesia.
Good call. Alpha 1 receptors are GQ coupled and work like a garden hose nozzle. When activated, they constrict blood vessels, raising blood pressure. That's where phenylephrine comes in. It's a pure alpha 1 agonist, great for treating hypotension during spinal anesthesia.
Then we've got alpha 2 receptors, which are GI coupled and act like a brake pedal. They're found presynaptically and reduce norepinephrine release. Dexmedetomidine and clonidine work here, providing sedation and lowering blood pressure.
Beta 1 receptors are the heart's gas pedal. They're Gs coupled and increase heart rate and contractility through CAMP activation. That's why dobutamine and epinephrine boost cardiac output. They're like stepping on the accelerator.
And beta 2 receptors? They're also Gs coupled but act like a fire hose, dilating blood vessels and airways. Epinephrine at low doses works here, which is why it's so effective in anaphylaxis.
Let's talk about dopaminergic receptors. These guys are like traffic controllers for organ perfusion. D1 receptors, which are Gs coupled, open up blood flow to the kidneys and mesentery, like an open toll gate. That's why dopamine was once thought to protect renal function, though that's now controversial.
And D2 receptors? They're G coupled, acting like a dimmer switch to modulate norepinephrine release and adjust blood pressure.
Now, when catecholamines aren't enough, the body calls in backup, vasopressin and angiotensin II. V1 receptors, which are GQ coupled, work like an emergency power switch, causing potent vasoconstriction when all else fails. That's why vasopressin is a lifesaver in septic shock.
And angiotensin II receptors? Also GQ coupled, they work like a water pump, increasing aldosterone and boosting blood volume and pressure. We're seeing angiotensin II analogs being used in shock management now.
Now that we know the receptors, let's talk about real-world use. Need to raise blood pressure? Vasopressors work by tightening the vascular system. Phenylephrine is pure alpha 1, closing the hose nozzle. Norepinephrine is a mix of alpha 1 and beta 1, tightening the pipes while giving the heart a mild push.
And when catecholamines fail, we bring in vasopressin, which works independently of the adrenergic system, like flipping on an emergency backup generator. Ephedrine, on the other hand, indirectly releases norepinephrine, like turning up the volume on a preloaded system.
Now, for inotropes, these drugs turbocharge the heart. Dobutamine presses the accelerator by stimulating beta 1 receptors, making it ideal for heart failure. Epinephrine gives a dose-dependent turbo boost. And milrinone. It's like optimizing fuel combustion. It keeps camp around longer, making it great when beta 1 receptors are downregulated.
Let's put this into perspective with actual cases. Say a patient experiences post-spinal hypotension due to sympathetic blockade. Phenylephrine or ephedrine would be the best choices to restore blood pressure.
And if a patient in septic shock isn't responding to norepinephrine, we suspect vasopressin deficiency. So we add vasopressin to improve vascular tone.
Or take myocardial dysfunction in cardiac surgery. When beta 1 receptors are desensitized, milrinone is a better option because it bypasses receptor activation and works directly on intracellular signaling.
And let's not forget the hypertensive response to laryngoscopy. That's a sympathetic surge, and a quick dose of esmolol can bring heart rate and blood pressure back under control.
Bottom line, understanding receptor pharmacology at a molecular level isn't just theory. It's what makes the difference between guessing and precision in anesthesia.
Exactly. The right drug at the right time can mean the difference between stability and a crisis.
And that's why we do what we do.
Thank you for joining Optimal Anesthesia Insights today. For a more detailed breakdown, including a descriptive explanation based on the latest evidence, check out our video, available from May 2025, where we dive deeper into these concepts. Learning fuels precision, so continue mastering your craft. We'll catch you in the next episode.